Ready?
Hello and welcome to Rhythm and Pixels, a video game music podcast. This is episode 32-8, and we're your hosts. My name is Rob Nichols.
And I'm Pernell.
And every week we listen to great video game music from all consoles and all generations. And this week is no different. We have music from video games.
Lots of video games. Actually, the same number of video games we always do too. But that's not a bad thing because we need to keep some for next episode.
I'm going to ask you this right now, and we can just leave this in the show. Is the sound coming in okay for you in the headphones?
Yeah.
Good.
What?
Because I think maybe my ears are just clogged because of allergies.
No, it's fine. I can hear you just fine.
I'm usually a lot more professional than this. So I'll just turn the volume up. Holy moly. I think I need a new microphone. I have a headphone mixer here. I just need a new one. I got the cheapest one I could find on Amazon. Because that's just how I do, Pernell.
But it's time to upgrade. You know how it goes.
Yeah.
We work hard. We have listeners who help us out.
We
put that money to use. We upgrade.
We love retro video games. We love retro consoles. I shouldn't have to deal with
modern technology.
I should be able to be like, hey, I could actually afford modern technology. Maybe I should just use it. And I'm like, nah, this works.
What a 45-Q audio tuner from 1992.
If Radio Shack was still around, I would be like buying all my cables and stuff from Radio Shack and just. Because back in the day, that's what I used. Everything I would get was like from Radio Shack, like a mixer from Radio Shack, and like all that stuff would break like immediately. It would never ever work, or it was like the worst quality. But like when you're in high school, you're like, it's the same thing. It's just a plug to a plug, and you got a plug.
And back then, when I was in high school, I thought Radio Shack was like tech heaven. As a guy who was unfamiliar with tech, I got my first computer from there. I convinced my mom to take out a $2,000 credit card loan.
Oh, you got? Is that a Tandy?
No, it wasn't a Tandy. It was a 133 megahertz Windows 95.
Oh, so
PC.
it was a little, later.
Yeah, well, that was my first computer. Literally, before that, I was just mooching off of all of my friends' PCs. Like I think I told the story on the show before about how when I was really obsessed with Persona 1 when it first came out, I would go to his house on weekends and look up FAQs, like the Henry LaPierre FAQ. And then one day I had the bright idea to use his dot matrix printer to print the entire FAQ.
I do remember that story, yeah.
Hundreds of pages. His dad wanted to kill me. Worth it.
Worth it. Nowadays, you can print double-sided on these things. So the dot matrix, it wasn't going to go bzzz, and then they put the page back in. And did it have like the little holes on the side?
Had to rip the sides off.
Oh yeah,
it was that kind of paper.
Oh, what was the name of that software? It was like on all of the old PCs. It was called Print Workshop or PrintWorks.
I was going to say Lotus 123, but I think that was like a word type software.
Lotus Notes. People still use for email, like especially like law firms and stuff. They can't get rid of it. I was at a tech conference and with a couple other IT people, and they're like, most of our stuff is in the cloud now, but I just can't get rid of Lotus.
Hey,
they won't let me get rid of Lotus. I'm like, everyone's like, we feel you, brother.
Hey, I can't hate it. If I could have kept Windows XP, I would have. So
a lot of people would have, and then you would be just covered in viruses and ransomware, and
also worth it.
Anyway, so last week, what was our show last week? It was about animals.
And more.
I really enjoyed that one.
Was it you that said it? Where you was like, you regret? It was either you or someone said that they regretted it not being on the show. Baku.
That was me.
Say it was you.
I think I started the show with saying like, darn, I should have picked from Baku.
Coming next.
But this episode is a little bit more. It's more meta, I would say, because this is a Pernell on the show, and we're going to dig into. This is the Pernell metaverse, the Pernelliverse.
The Pernell reviewverse.
I think we're going to call this episode the Pernell multiverse. Because we're going to be looking at or listening to games that Pernell has reviewed on other podcasts and websites.
So to put in some context on this, I've always been playing video games, and there wasn't a time in my life that I can recall where you couldn't have asked me to tell you about a game and I would enthusiastic praise or denounce that said title. But I didn't actually start doing reviews and having them recorded or, placed onto a website for people to consume up until maybe 2016. I got asked on SML to cover for a person because he was away in France. So I was like, hey, well, we need to get this game reviewed, and he's gone. Do you think he'd be able to help out? I was like, sure. It was Amnesia, the collection on PS4.
Right, okay.
And after I reviewed that game and liked it, And he was like, you want to review another one? And I said, I would. And I kept doing it for like 7 years.
So because this is the Pernell Multiverse, and we're going to be talking about these games that you have history with, we should plug these other programs.
That's right.
So
this was the SML podcast I'm describing right now, and that is actually a bi-weekly. I didn't get the word. I've never heard twice weekly podcast.
Yeah, bi-weekly for me, is it like every 2 weeks, or is it twice a week?
That would be every 2 weeks. Bi-weekly is every 2 weeks, which is why I had to catch myself. I think it's actually twice weekly.
I've heard it both ways, Pernell. And I'm not just making this a psych joke. Is it psych? I've heard it both ways. Yeah. I've heard it both ways all the time, and I'm always like, am I saying it right?
Well, think about when you hear someone say bi-monthly, you get a subscrition issue every 2 months. That's bi-monthly.
Right.
So bi-weekly would be every 2 weeks.
A lot of people would say like, oh, well, how do you get paid at this job? Is it every month? They're like, oh, no, it's bi-monthly.
Well, let's be honest here.
Twice a month.
That's along the lines of like this week, next week, the following week. And whenever you say the following week, people get thrown for a loop. Like, which one is the following? Is it next week because it follows the current week, or is it the following the next week?
I ride a bicycle. It's got 2 wheels. It's not one wheel then another wheel a week later.
What? Because two episodes. No, I was hilarious.
I digress.
2 episodes per week, and I appear on one of them every week.
Okay.
Every once in a while, I'll be on the second. Like, for example, last week's episode, there was an episode where we had one of the main sound designers and a few of the artists that composed for the game Soundfall that just came out on like everything, and that was actually a pretty cool like dialogue/interview. That was an episode where I just kind of came on because like, hey, we're having these people. You want to join? I was like, sure. But so SML, we really prattle along, gab a lot, and then we do game reviews. I'm not going so far to say it's professional. Think of it as more like fun-national. And we have a good time, but also the language could get a little more colorful than you'll hear on Rhythm and Pixels. Now, the other thing that I do game reviews for, though unfortunately not as frequently because of the time commitments, is Hey Poor Player. It is a video game website that does video game news and video game reviews. Fantastic product, fantastic site run by wonderful people, and it's a good show. And the thing about that is, like, I'll never forget how I ended up on that show, and I don't think this is like TMI. I think it's actually a funny story. It was a PlayStation Vita like group one day that I was in on Facebook, and it was a typical gamers arguing back and forth. And I ultimately ended up putting some jerk in his place because he was being rude on the site. And I was passionate about putting him in his place, and then talked up a game at the same time. And then the editor of the site was like, hey, I saw you have that dialogue in there, man. Do you think you'd be interested in doing some writing too? Because he saw how much I'd written and all that stuff.
Based on your argumentative writing.
Yes.
He was like, perfect. Let's just do it.
Like, this guy would be great for writing on the site.
That. Yeah.
And then the very first game I reviewed for him, because he gave me a trial game to see how I would do, it was The Mummy Demastered. Which
cool
ended up being a great game.
Yeah, very cool game.
And after that one, the second one, I think I was telling you earlier in the episode, actually was Tokyo Tattoo Girls, and that game was abysmal. But that's also when I learned that apparently, while it is more fun to gush verbally about games I like, I have a real penchant for writing lots of fun words about games I don't like. Like, there's almost more fun to write about games you dislike than games you do.
Yeah, Pernell on the dark side a little bit, right?
Yeah, it's criticism at its peak. It's like, let me break this down and tell you how much I hated it. Which is, again, strange because I don't like if we're talking right now, I don't want to talk to you about a game I hate. I want to tell you about a game I want you to play.
Yeah.
You know? But think of like writing it as like a cautionary tale.
And we sort of like toyed around with doing a separate podcast feed for the show called Pixel Plays, and we would just have like a really quick like one-off reviews of games. And then we didn't do that anymore. We did like 3 times. You can find all that on the website. It's all very organized. If you want to go click on some things and explore the Robin Pernell-verse. But today is the Pernell-verse.
And this is interesting too because
the multiverse of madness.
Like, while I know the games that I reviewed, which ones did I have a list of many of them. Like, fun fact, I've reviewed over 650 video games. So I'm not going to remember all of them, and I'm actually wondering if you're going to name one that I didn't. But I know most of my games. Rob, on the other hand, what did you do, Rob?
I looked through the website. Oh my god! And there's like over 700 episodes, and so I only looked in the last 100.
That makes things a little easier for me.
I don't know when you started.
2015. I'm sorry, in like November 2016.
Okay, so very well could have been like the beginning of the show.
No, because that show's been around for a long time.
Okay, so it was earlier. Anyway, I only looked in the last 100, and even then,
Okay, first episode I had a review on was December 9th, 2016.
unbelievable.
Because I kept the list.
All right, there you go. All right, so I'm going to start with the track from a game called Loop Hero. Remember Loop Hero?
Oh, I know Loop Hero.
All right, the track is called Killer X Chase. The artist is Blinch. Let's get started. I like that. I love that synth sound. That's a really cool sound. Because everything is like that kind of chiptune sound, except for that one. It's like a screaming kind of synthesizer.
God, the OST for this game is legit. I'm glad you picked from this one.
Oh, good, good. So this is called Killer Cross Chase or Killer X Chase from the game Loop Hero. The artist is Blinch. I didn't look up the real name. I think it's like Damien. I think it's Damien.
Damien Blinch.
Which sounds like a cool name, honestly. But the artist name is going by as Blinch. It is cool. I really like the sound. The artwork for this is really dark. I'll tell you this. Of all the games I picked from, I didn't watch anything about them except for one. And where I'm playing that game at the end of the show.
Okay.
So I was hoping you could tell me a little bit.
Oh, I was.
I'm gonna put you on the spot with every song.
That's why I thought it'd be pretty funny if you ended up picking something like, well, I don't remember anymore.
And that'd be okay.
Thankfully, this is the first one where I know for a fact I remember. So,
good.
First and foremost, I gave this a buy. For SML, the rating system generally goes, it's a very loosey-goosey format. It's either deny it, try it, buy it, or beep it, why not? The latter being essentially a game that's so cheap that you may as well just buy it and see for yourself.
That seems like an important kind of rating to have, you know? Where it can't be like bestest best. It's like, no, because sometimes it's like, you know what? It's $5. Try it.
And I think the reason why I like that rating system the most, and then I'll talk about the game, is that a lot of websites and publications have to go, they adhere to that numeric rating scale, 9, 10, 7, whatever.
Right.
And it's been so busted at this point. Like, people will look at a 6 like it's a bad review. Like, no, 6 is just above average. But no one uses that scale anymore. It's been tainted. But with that rating scale that we've got on that show, you almost have to listen to what we have to say about the game. Because if you don't, that final statement actually doesn't mean anything. It's just words that have no value. You can't quantify it for Metacritic. It's just some words.
Yeah.
So you have to listen to the dialogue.
It's like you go to Rotten Tomatoes before you go to a movie, and it's like, oh, it's only 65%. But like, you don't know how it got to 65. You're not looking at all those reviews. It's just like, how did it get to 65?
It's like the aggregate only means so much.
Right, so how did this get to buy it?
So this game is a very odd game in the scope of games. In fact, I would go so far to say you barely play anything. you are exist in a world where like the lich essentially erases the world. Like he shows up, waves his hand, and just erases everything. But then suddenly, a road appears, a cyclic road, and a lone hero shows up. And he doesn't remember anything. He's just walking around this loop.
Huh.
And as he walks around the loop, he slowly starts to recall things. And those recollections appear in your inventory in the form of like land tiles, like mountains, forests, events, towns, or whatever.
Oh, cool.
And as the player, your job is to place these tiles somewhere around the world map. He just walks and does his own thing, but you have to create the world for him.
He's always moving, and then like with his memories of what the world is, you're placing them down.
You're placing them down.
Oh, that's a very clever idea.
Now, each of these tiles has an effect of sorts. Like, some might increase his hit points. Some might increase, like, his attack power. Some might result in monsters popping up on the road that he has to fight. And there's this interesting balance of that, because if you put down too many monsters, he'll become overwhelmed and he won't win. You don't put down enough monsters, he won't be strong enough to fight the Lich at the end of the game.
Right, because you need like the experience points and stuff to do that. Oh, that's cool. You're describing it like a board game.
Because it feels like a board game.
It could be a really good board game.
It really would. Yeah. In fact, I feel like at its core, that's what it would be. Like, if a board game with 4 players existed, the way this game would have to transfer in and be like, okay, each person puts tiles down and you personally score based on what your tiles' effects do and how he responds to the tiles' effects. And you have to place them in accordance with where he is on the map to benefit or give him detrimental effects. It's a really fun game that I like to call it the kinds of games that I shouldn't like. Like, you're not supposed to like them, and yet you can't put them down. Like, it doesn't feel like a game, but it's clearly making you think like a game. And at the time, it was one of my favorite games I had played for a bit. Like, I was into it. And then you eventually cut to a point where you come across a town of other people who are like slowly coming in, like fading into life, and they don't know what's going on, but they're just trying to make sense of things. And you are collective as a group work together to try to like build the town back up. It's a wonderful game.
That's cool.
I recommend it to dang near anybody. And I have to say it that way because, again, if you were listening to anything I just said, this falls outside of the scope of a typical game. You can't say, do you like RPGs? You'll love Loop Hero. Do you like running guns? You'll love Loop Hero. This is, do you like experimental games?
Yeah.
Try Loop Hero.
I'm hoping I chose from experimental games because that tends to what intrigues me. It's not something I always want to play, but it's always like I'm always really curious about new ways to play, and new because in the world, the landscape of games that we live in today, like developers can try anything. You know, people can try anything. People just starting out can try anything, and I love seeing where it goes. And then of course, like a lot of those ideas get co-opted into future things too. Like they might popularize more visual novel style stuff, and then boom, there you go. That stuff gets put everywhere.
And the best thing about, like, you would say, like, because I agree with what you're saying there. Like, when you think of video games, or heck, let's be honest, you think about media.
Yeah, it's
consumable media.
Yes.
Everything's derived from something else. Nothing's new anymore.
Yeah.
So the trick becomes, how do you take what exists and make it feel unique?
Right.
Make it feel new.
But these small indie games where they don't have a lot of skin in the game and they can try something, and it doesn't have to be a 60-hour experience. It could be like a shorter type thing, and they don't have to put so many people and time into it. They can just craft it over how many years, but they can try something very different.
But here's the beauty to that statement, though,
a
too.
Scapegoat.
Even though,
that.
God, that game is good.
Yeah.
But even if they can do that, you still have to have the mind to come up with the idea for the thing.
Totally.
And, like, I mean, like, you'll get indie guys where it's like, I'm new to the scene. Here's this cool RPG where you're a lone hero who meets a girl who's in trouble, and you go to save her kingdom with a sword and a will of honor. Like, look, I get it. It's your passion project, and I hope it succeeds.
Yeah.
But anybody, including the guy who made it, will have to admit it's not an original premise, right? So it's like, this guy said, I'm going to make a game where you don't even play it.
Well, that's the thing about freedom of creativity. Some people just aren't as creative as others, and that's okay.
And that's okay, because I'm going to tell you right now, what my game's going to be about involves, like, food wars, but the wars being fought by the food, and the humans are the ammo.
Food wars. Humans are the ammo.
Humans are the ammo.
You're just, like, shooting people like Pac-Mans, and they're flying across the screen, like, eating things. It's like a reverse food fight. really like that idea.
It could be. I would make that game if I had the skill. That's the kind of weird crap floating around up here.
All right, what's your first track? So we're not here until midnight.
So the first game, or rather the first game OST that I want to pick is the actual track that made me want to do or work with this topic.
Okay.
This comes from the game Radio Viscera, and the track title, I had a hard time choosing between two tracks. I'm going to say the name of the other track. It may show up on the show one day. The track we're not playing is called Destination Defenestration.
Okay.
I love that name.
But we're not playing that one.
We're not playing that.
I did not type that.
You did not type that. The track we are going to play is called See Something, Slay Something, and it is composed by Owen Deery. Welcome back. You're listening to See Something, Slay Something from the game Radio Viscera, released on Steam and composed, actually, and created by Owen Deery. Radio Viscera is an interesting game. But I'm going to just state, before I even talk about the game proper, that I absolutely am in love with the OST for this game. I reviewed it maybe 2 years ago, and the OST is still in my thoughts. And keeping in mind, this is a game that I've never heard anyone else talk about. So the fact that it gets no press from my friends and I still listen to the OST speaks volumes. Like, I love this music so much.
This is a cool. It sounds like a garage rock, but like video gamey garage rock, which is really neat. It's really like the last track. It's very unique sounding.
Yes.
And it's not a short track either. There's a lot happening in it,
and it's
for one guy to do.
Yes, like he put the work to this, and it shows. And I'm glad that there's a lot going on, because for how the game works, you want some music to to lay over the mayhem that you are causing. The idea behind Radio Viscera, and forgive me if I miss some bits here if you're listening to this at any point, Owen, is you are a robot who was originally on like an assembly line of sorts, and you were tasked with being destroyed, but the machine doesn't perform the task properly. You don't get destroyed. So you leave, you come out of the rubble, and you start running, you start to leave, and you come across this prototype gun that doesn't fire bullets. It just fires force. So you press the trigger
and you push
things.
Oh, okay.
And the whole game is people coming after you to reclaim you and destroy you, and you're just pushing them in the objects to kill them. and get them out of your way. Like push them into grinders, push them into smashers, push them into like just different things. And that may sound like it would get old fast and boring.
Is it kind of
really doesn't?
Is it kind of puzzly? Like
It is puzzly, Tucker. There's also combos you're trying to pull off. Like you want to keep your score up. It's just a lot of fun, and they do hit you with a number of scenarios where like the enemies are like coming at you with like crazy guns. Like, okay, what's the best way to sneak around the back, catch this guy, blow him into the meat grinder, and then get this guy, blow him into the acid bath, and it's a great game. And the entire time, this music, this OST is just playing in your ears.
Yeah, it's good. We're gonna have links to the Bandcamp for all of the like. Oftentimes on our show, there's not like a lot of links to give for the original composers or for the music. It's classic games, but for this stuff, we're gonna have links to everything because a lot of these indie developers and small timer developers, we're gonna have their own Bandcamp pages and things like that. So, but we'll have links to this Owen's Bandcamp for this soundtrack and for the games as well, because he's got a lot of work up there.
Yeah, and honestly, I would think if you're the type of person who doesn't mind a little violence, because again, you are literally pushing people into meat grinders. If you're okay with a little violence in your games,
is it cartoony? Is it like
it's
a 3D cartoony?
It's cartoony. Yeah, like you're not like these getting these hyper realistic people. Like you're in a spacesuit and you're like walking around. You got this like wacky hop bop going to you.
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast recently about the history of Mortal Kombat and the whole series, and it's like you look back on the original games and you're like, oh, okay, it was meant to be over the top, and it's funny because it's live actors with like, it's so pixelated, it's funny. Mm-hmm. But the games they make nowadays, I can't even stomach.
I agree.
And that's just me, but like I have a hard time with like that level of realism with that kind of violence.
For me,
I can't even watch MMA fighting.
It's weird for me. Like I won't go so far as to say that I don't have the stomach for it, but there's this like sense of context that it has to have. If the context is just we want to be violent, I really have no taste for it. Like I remember the first game that made me actually make a stance like that was when the first Manhunt released on PlayStation 2.
Yeah, that was a little, and part of it was like graphically it was doing something, but the other way it was also doing something in a horror world. That
it was taking the reality TV vibe going. It was like you were kidnapped, your family was kidnapped, and that was why they were able to force you to participate.
And that's not a new trope in horror movies. I'm sure that's been done here and there, but like to actually to be in control of the media, like you're playing that part, it puts you in a weird mood.
And that's what it was. Like it's one thing if you were forced to be in this world and you were trying to get out, but you were coy about it. Like, I'm not going to succumb or whatever. Or if the graphics didn't lead to it. But that game was, like, very visceral for its time, for sure. Now people might look at the graphics and go, blocking.
It's the same thing with Mortal Kombat. Back then, we were kids, and you're like, he just ripped that guy's head off. Does that mean he's not going to be in the game anymore? Like,
no, he'll be back on the next match.
Like, if someone, like, took Dhalsim and, like, ripped his arms off, he'd be like, so, canonically, Dhalsim has no arms.
But, like, something like that, like, I won't touch. But by that same token, I mean, I'll play a Silent Hill game.
Oh, yeah.
It can be as hyper-realistic as it wants to be with the deaths and everything because the context, the story, what's going on in that game, I feel like the violence makes sense there. Like, it's not there just to be grody and to get your tensions up. It's there to tell part of the plot.
I do like the zombie stuff and like trying to eat your brains and.
But I mean like literal people. Like when a person dies in Silent Hill, when that ever happens, you're like, whoa, that happened. I didn't want it to happen.
I'm just trying to provide context about what I said earlier.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah. That like there's I can get into some other things, but when it's like that, it just kind of sits with me wrong. All right, our next game is not going to sit with you wrong. It is, this is called Monster Crown. You remember Monster Crown?
Oh, okay.
All right, this is Monster Crown, composed by Alex Naivera. We're going to listen to the farm theme. We're going to put the brakes on this fast music for a minute. This is the farm theme from Monster Crown, composed by Alex Naivera. I love that lead. It's just off a little bit. It's really cute. This is the farm theme from Monster Crown, composed by Alex Naivera. I just want to like strut to this song.
It's a bop.
Yeah.
It is a legitimate bop.
So it's like, again, it's got a chiptune kind of sound, but if you listen carefully, all of the instruments, the synth instruments, have like a lot of reverb and fullness behind it. So it just sounds nostalgic. Like you're hearing it almost like in a basement or on a TV, like on an old school TV turned all the way up, you know?
Now, just to make sure I got this right, you didn't look up the game proper, right? So this is just you saying, here's the game, here's the track, and you're giving this description.
Yeah, I went through, I didn't watch through any games. I just didn't even read any descriptions.
No, I'm good. I'm glad.
Oh, this looks cute, or oh, this looks neat. Let me hear the music to it.
And I'm glad to hear that. The reason I made that statement is because I think it's interesting that you haven't seen the gameplay, but you made that description because I believe that's what the guy was going for.
Okay.
When he composed this music. Because for those who don't know, Monster Crown is a game that was developed with the intent, I think it even had a Kickstarter, but it was developed with the intent to mimic the vibe that you would have gotten from a Game Boy Color Pokemon game.
Oh, okay.
So
perfect.
This is the music that plays at the beginning of the game, or not so much the beginning, but it's like the starting area, your family's farm. It takes place in a world where monsters are not so much like these cute things you catch and you battle and they become your friends or whatever. It plays in a world where you have to form contracts with the monsters. Like, they have to agree to work with you.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
The monsters can be pretty violent. The trainers aren't always so great.
But it's a collaborative experience.
Oh, yeah.
With the monsters.
It's interesting. Like, a person can either take or leave like the whole attempted mature storyline that they put into the game and all that. But one thing that I think is worth it to play if you've at any point in time liked Pokemon, classic Pokemon, or even the modern Pokemon, but you're okay with retro things, is the fact that what they intended to do with this game was make it so that monster breeding actually felt like monster breeding. So for those who don't know, in the Pokemon games, you can breed monsters, but what ends up happening is you breed a mother and a father Pokemon, essentially. And the Pokemon that comes from the egg is the mother breed. And then you might get some traits from the father being like the nature of the Pokemon or maybe an egg move, quote unquote. But in this game, they actually intended it to be that when you breed the two monsters together, you get this weird amalgamation of the two. Like, they actually become a brand new monster.
Oh.
And there are a stupid number of combinations in this game that you can create through breeding the monsters.
Is when you put them together, is it procedurally put together, or is each one actually actual? They thought of all of the permutations.
I think they actually thought of the permutations. Like, there's some crazy things that happen in this game, and then there's also breed items, like how Pokemon has items that can also alter this, and they become new monsters that can then be bred.
Oh, that's fascinating.
It is wild. Like, that to me is the coolest thing I experienced with this game, was just like getting monsters and putting them together to get their eggs. What the heck is going to come out of this thing? You might not even keep it. You don't care. You just want to see what comes out of the egg. The battles can be pretty tough. It's still got the 1v1, but you can switch monsters in and out vibe like Pokemon's got. So you take that as you will. But I really do like this game. Like, I had a lot of fun playing it. It had some issues. Like, it wasn't a perfect game by any means. I think it's very rare I play a game where I'm like, no problems, perfect game. And even if it was perfect, to me, it's still not perfect. But despite that, I still feel like this game did a great job at what it wanted to do. I enjoyed what it wanted to be. I enjoyed that it was a very different take on Pokemon, which in my opinion, and you know how much I like Pokemon. I own so many of their freaking games, but the formula has gotten stale. So to see someone come out and say, here's one thing we're going to do that Pokemon's never really done.
Yeah, it has been many years. Many years.
And aside from Arceus, it's like the sort of thing where they almost refuse to change for the most part because, there's money. Like, they have shareholders. They can't just put out, like you were talking about earlier, they can't just put out an experimental Pokemon game that's meant to be their big year release.
Yeah. People like this can go out there and they can do their own thing, and there's and because the market is so big, there is a market for something like this. Is this like in an 8-bit kind of style, like
yes.
an old school Game Boy style? I like that.
It has the full-on Game Boy Color graphic style, including like how, remember on the Super Game Boy, when you put a cartridge in, you could get like that sort of color palette overlay sometimes.
Yeah.
Even though this game isn't one-to-one like that, it sure as heck feels like it sometimes. If you're going through an area, it's just like a shader that's just over like a cellophane.
Well, they want to make you feel like kind of part of it, or and maybe that's part of the experience. And if you're playing a game that's kind of in a low bit style, like that kind of pixely style, then you kind of want to feel like that experience. I think it adds to it. I think it does add to it. It's not just a feature or like a kitschy thing, you know. And
they totally pulled it off with this game. Monster Crown. The only thing that might give people a hurdle might be the price, because I think it retailed at $30, and you know how it is. People are like bang for your buck or whatever.
The thing is, it sounds like a big game. It sounds like
a lot there.
There's a lot
there.
A lot of meat to those potatoes.
Meat
to the potatoes.
All right. Meat to the potatoes.
All right. What's your next track?
All right. So my next
game.
So this comes from a game that I may have actually mentioned on the show before, but for some reason I feel like I wanted to bring it up again today. This comes from the game Mechstermination Force. This was a game I reviewed for Hey Poor Player. The track title is called Endless Climb, and it was composed by Victor Engstrom, who goes by Sonigon, and Arnie Orberg. Welcome back. You're listening to Endless Climb from the game Mechstermination Force. I reviewed it for the Switch, but I'm not sure what other systems it's on. I'm sure it's on other stuff.
For a lot of these games, I'm kind of leaving the what system it's on off, because it's just on a lot of stuff.
It's on a lot of stuff. This was composed by Victor Engstrom, who goes by Sonigon, and Arnie Orberg. So, first of all, this is an earworm track for me. I bopped this a fair bit. Doesn't hurt that I was playing this game for the purpose of the review at a time when I was working a pretty crappy job, and I was like, this is a great distraction in the break room. But the best way to describe Mechstermination Force is, Rob mentioned Contra Hardcore, which is actually better than I was going to say Contra, but Contra Hardcore
specifically, because you can climb on the ceilings and on the walls and stuff. Yeah. It looks like that. So side-scrolling action, but you are tiny, and the monsters, the mechs,
are humongous. Because that is actually the main hook on this game. It's all boss fights.
Wait, you play this on the handheld?
Yes, that's right.
Wow, that is tough.
I put that work in.
Because that's why the one thing I thought would be difficult was because the character is so small.
Yeah, because and the thing about it is, like, somebody might be hearing this and go, "Oh my God, why not just make him bigger?" And I get that. I totally can get why you'd want him to be bigger because it's easier to see. But I think what they were going for was the sheer scale of the opponents you're being made to fight in this game. You're fighting humongous robots.
Like the size of skyscrapers.
Yes. Like the level that this track plays on, the robot's name is like something along the lines like Macbeth 2.0, and it's a two-headed mecha where you have to like slowly break him and climb up his inner torso, and sometimes his outer torso, to get up and destroy the two heads at the top. And he's like wringing his arm, and he's like punching himself in the sides to hit you. He fires finger lasers at you.
Oh, wow.
His like innards are like electrified, so like you're like dodging the lasers inside of him as you're climbing up. It is a lot of fun. And you can get like upgrades, like health upgrades, get new weapons you can use, like, you know, typical like Contra-Type weapons like a spread gun and lasers and all that. And it's just every boss fight, it's got that vibe. You're like, I can't wait to see what the next boss is going to be like.
Is there anything in between? Is there any like gameplay in between?
All bosses.
It's just all boss.
You go back to the base, you talk to a few characters, you get purchase upgrades and stuff, and then it's back out to fight a boss.
Oops, all bosses.
Oops, all bosses. But in the best way, it's like how I talk about Stretch Panic in that same way that Treasure made game from eons ago. That game is all bosses, but again, it works there because just like how this game does it, the bosses feel very experimental and unique in their own individual battles. You're like, wow, I can't wait to see what the next boss is going to be. What do they make me do now?
Now, is the music like in a different style for each different boss, or is it all this kind of triumphant, like kind of strings and rock?
Not so much triumphant, but definitely like the stringiness. Like I think of it as like sort of like a westernist sort of thing. It's very western-esque.
Okay.
But it's
like a western movie.
No, it's not. I think it's what I find funny. Like, it's not even a Western style game. It's very like mecha modern. Like everything's mechanical. You know, your guy's got like these weird like gauntlet boots. You eventually get like gravity, like the ability to like walk, like super jump, and like get like gravity walkers and stuff like that. Like you get character upgrades, but the music sounds like it's coming out of a Western, like a comedy action Western.
A comedy action Western with giant robots.
Yes.
All right, my next track may not be that. It's called Super Sami Roll.
Oh, yeah.
Good, I'm so glad to know that.
Evader.
Yeah, Evader. I saw Evader, and I was like, yes, we're going to play the Evader track. This is called Pride and Honor from Super Sami Roll, composed by Evader. You're listening to the track Pride and Honor from the game Super Sami Roll, composed by Evader. This is cool. This sounds like a boss track. This sounds like, or end of game being chased by a roaring inferno out of a building kind of a track.
Are you sure you didn't look up any footage for this game?
No, I don't.
This is hilarious.
The game looked cute.
Yeah, that's what they want you to think.
That's what they want you to think.
So, put some perspective on this. I was offered this game for review on SML, and I chose it. I agreed to it specifically because Evader composed for it. I didn't even care about the game at the time. I was like, I don't care, Evader did it, I'm in. because I love everything Evader does. So excellent choice and track.
Okay.
The game, the best way to describe this game is it's meant to elicit feelings of, I guess, think of like a GameCube game.
I have no reference for that.
I understand. I just think of like the colorfulness of a GameCube game and a Nintendo controller and all that. Your main character's a little dinosaur named Sami. Typical classic video game plotline. His girlfriend was kidnapped by an evil villain, and you roll off to the rescue to save her. The gameplay, however, is essentially you turn into a ball and you roll very quickly.
Okay.
So think Sonic the Hedgehog type speeds.
Like Sonic rolling down a hill situation.
Yes.
Okay.
He is very fast.
Yeah.
You're pretty much cutting turns, rolling over like, speed bumpers and stuff. And you can also jump, and you can also stick out your tongue to grapple onto things and spin around and fling yourself into directions. Funny. It is a hard game. Very hard game. And there's secret exits to stages sometimes, so you can find hidden bonus worlds. The music is really good. It's a very light, happy vibe to it, but it's also really, really difficult.
Punishingly hard. This music is fantastic.
Well, it's punishingly not just because the levels are hard, but also because they have the whole, you get an S rank, you get a triple S rank.
You're also graded, and so you're chasing the score.
Chasing the score high. Now, this track, the reason why I made the comment I did earlier is because you seem to be really good at nailing where these tracks play in these games, and it's making me laugh. From what I recall, this track played for me at the end of the first world, and it was for the boss fight there. Now, with the boss levels, it's not just a matter of fighting a boss. Initially, you have to get to the boss, and on this level, you're on a tower surrounded by lava.
Oh, okay. So wow. So I feel like that means these composers are super successful in evoking that feeling, because I immediately picked it up.
And the other part you mentioned about it, I think you mentioned something along those tenseness, like trying to get there, trying to very quickly, hastily
you're
get
being
by.
chased by something. Yeah.
You're being chased by the lava because the lava's rising. You have to scale this tower before the lava gets you. I spent a lot of times dying here. It's a very difficult stage, especially if you're trying to get a good rank.
The end of world. Oh yeah. So it's like. Are you the kind of player? Okay, I've seen you play games, but are you kind of player, even first playthrough, if you get halfway through and you're not going to have a good score or a good rank, and then get to that kind of game, will you stop, reset it, and go back and try it again?
I have done that. I won't always do it. Depends on the vibe I'm getting from the level. Like if it was just brutal getting to that point, I will just clear it and then come back.
You're like, you know what? I'm not going to get a better rank now.
Yeah, but I'll come back maybe even after beating the level. But at least I'll be able to say I can move on if I'm tired of it.
But if it's easy enough and you made a dumb mistake, you're like, restart.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, that's tough. That's a GDR thing too, and it's tough to get over that.
It's really
hard.
One more time.
One more time. My foot slipped. One more time.
Like that's the amazing thing about a lot of DDR, because you see me this with Pump too. Like scoring is usually always either you're going to get an S rank, maybe an A+, or you're going to fail.
But those people out there are chasing like the all perfect or the all marvelous scores or whatever. Like in the arcade, they put real money into this thing, miss one step, and they just walk off. I'm like, damn.
I'll admit this. When it comes to those, I never walk off.
That's
so
also,
I'm there for the exercise.
At home, it's one thing. I can just, it's in the game, Control R just restarts the song.
Yep.
But like in the arcade, that's a lot of time, too.
Pop music on the home version, I did do that. I would stop if I missed one note in the combo, reset the stage.
I can do that better.
Reset the stage. But at Pump in the arcade, I'm playing my whole set unless I so badly screwed up and my energy levels won't help me get back on track. I just screw it. I'll come back later.
Yeah, but that's a stamina thing though. Your energy's low, right?
Yeah. Now I'm at the point where I'm trying to do these songs that I kid you not, I could not have done in my 20s. I'm trying to do them in my 40s.
Doesn't that feel good that you're like, hey, we're we're older, but we're better?
Yes. I've had people come up to me and go, holy crap, you're good. These are guys who play with the bar, but they're playing at 17s and stuff. And the reason being is because one, they acknowledge I'm older. Two, they acknowledge I'm not using the bar, and I'm still trying to measure up to what they do with the bar. So I'm spinning around, my torso's just flailing around on the machine. It's how is he doing that? I'm like, because I always play this way. That's what I do.
Yeah. With doubles, I find it difficult with the bar.
I agree.
Singles, I play all the time with the bar, but doubles, I never got used to that feeling, and I think it looks kind of weird.
It really does.
So
You're extending your body.
So I'm just kind of resigned myself to be like, I'm never going to be that good at that. And it was Pump. I never actually learned how to do doubles effectively. I can't read the arrows.
Yeah, and the levels I'm at now, they do have like, what do you call them when it's like the gallops, and they're not quite on the rhythm, but you're kind of like do 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 do.
A flam. But that's like a drum thing.
I love that term, by the way.
Flam,
I'm doing a lot of levels now where there's lots of flam, but since there's no arrow coloring to differentiate between a gallop or a skip or a run or a jog, you ultimately have to just know from the sound that's what they want me to do.
Yeah. For me, I wasn't reading the rhythm. It's just like knowing.
Well, you had the vivid arrows on DDR.
Oh, DDR I can. Yeah. But on Pump I can't because the up and the down like
they're the same color.
It's the same color on either side of the pad. So I have a hard time reading like what side of the pad I'm supposed to be on, and then I get in my own head and I forget what's up and what's down. It's not a good thing. All right, what is your last track?
All right, so this next one is an interesting one because I actually reviewed this game for both SML and A4 Player, which made for an interesting juxtaposition because I had to write about it and verbally discuss it. This comes from the game The Witch and the 100 Knight 2, and the track title is called Mr. Big, composed by Tenpei Sato. Welcome back. You're listening to Mr. Big from the game The Witch and the 100 Knight 2, composed by Tenpei Sato. I was talking about this to Rob earlier, but later on in like June, all the podcasts are going to ultimately do this thing called like the Masters of VGM podcast.
The Masters of VGM from the podcast.
Or not podcast, but the theme. And
because it's just you and me, and I can't think of anybody else.
Oh, stop it, you. And I'm flat out going to say, don't be surprised if one of my people end up being Tenpei Sato, because he's a fairly recent-ish as far as like how VGM podcasters pick their tracks and all. He's fairly recent. Like he was around like in the mid-2000s.
Yeah.
With like a lot of PS2 games. He was probably doing stuff sooner, but I didn't learn about him until then. Like Gadget Racers and Disgaea 1. He primarily composes for Nippon Ichi Software games. And I adore his style. I adore it. He does a lot with violins. Rob described an instrument that I've never heard of in my life.
It was a style, klezmer.
Oh, the style is klezmer.
Yeah, klezmer style. Yeah, the violin kind of goes in that way, but all the orchestration around it is like very like rock orchestra. Really, I don't know. It's really unique. Like and his rhythm with the drums are always really specific too. Like it's very I can't even. It's hard to describe. And the vocals too. It's always like a little bit of a yeah, exactly. Yeah, some kind of orchestrated vocal in the background too. Anyway, I mean,
that's okay.
I really feel all of his music, but it has a style to it that's hard to describe.
Yes, and I've been ever since I first heard something from him. I've been in love with his style ever since. Like I will pick up a Tenpei Sato OST and go get excited for it. Funny enough, I wasn't originally going to pick this track. For eons, I was talking about, I'm going to get Scramble Cross on the show. I'm going to get Scramble Cross on the show, which is the original track I wanted to play, which is like the mid-boss battle theme. But this track is like the big boss battle theme. Not like a final, but like, like bigger than mid-boss, but not quite final. And I love this track. I feel as though it does a better job of displaying what he can do. This is probably one of his better tracks even. So in the end, I was like, no, I want to put this one on instead of the other one. As far as the game, I feel like The Witch in the 100 Night 2 is a very prime example of people needing to really listen to why people say they like or dislike a game. Because I rated this game very highly. And it's flawed to all Kingdom Come.
It's got some issues.
It's got some issues. And I honestly didn't care because worth putting into context the fact that when I got the code to review, I was obsessed with this game, and I played, and you know how I am with games. I had a week to review it, and for those who are like, a week to review a JRPG, most review outlets are this way, so just okay. And I'm a hobbyist reviewer. It's not my full-time job.
Right.
So with all that in mind, I played through the entire game in a week because I was obsessed with it. I wanted to see the end of it. Because I liked the characters, I liked the dialogue, I liked the plot, I liked everything about it. But the problem that the game actually had was that the Nippon Ichi as a studio, their big problem, for better or worse, is that they have very low budgets for like everything they do, which usually results in like reused assets, shortcuts. And essentially, you can still point like, okay, the gameplay is great, but now I'm tired of it. I wanted to stop.
Okay, repetitive in a way.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So I got to, and you were watching a video earlier while we were playing the track. You might have noticed the main character was just dashing past a lot of enemies at one point. That's because eventually you're like, I don't need to fight him. I just want to get to the next boss and story bit.
I see.
And that happened with this game. Like I wanted to see the next guy. I want to see the next thing. And in the end, the only reason I didn't beat the game proper was we got to the very final boss. I lost to the boss because the boss was actually surprisingly tough for me. And I didn't feel like leveling up to beat him. Because I was like, I just don't want to play it enough to do that.
You've seen it all.
I've seen it all. I can look up the ending on YouTube.
That's a shame, but you still rated it very highly.
Yes, and I made sure to explain why I did that. Because I think they did a great job here. And if it wasn't the hands of a studio that had money to burn, it would have been way better. But I still thought it deserved a good bit of praise. It's a great game, or it's got great elements worthy of praise.
Well, we are coming to the end of the show, which means it is now time for the bonus round. Bonus round. Bonus round is where we're playing covers and arrangements and remixes on our show. But guess what? We're not doing that.
Yeah, I was like,
we're picking for more games. Instead, I picked a track with vocals on it. That usually works for the bonus round. We kind of showcase more sing-songy. So this is the only one I watched the gameplay for, and I watched a lot of it because it pulled me in. This is called Retired Men's Nude Beach Volleyball. Nude, that's correct. It's composed by Calvero and Will Brierly. This is the theme song to the game. It's kind of short, and it's just I thought it was a joke, and then I started watching it, and I'll explain it later, but it is not. It is so full of heart, and it's got so much soul, and it looks terrible. But I feel like for a good reason, and I really liked it. So we're gonna listen to the theme song to Retired Men's Nude Beach Volleyball.
You gotta play with your heart, give it all that you got. Take a shot, serve it up on the bar with everything you got. Stand in the sand, you're a retired man. Yeah, this is life, here you are, back and forth. This is your plan. Retired Men's Nude Beach Volleyball League. Retired Men's Nude Beach Volleyball League. Having fun in the sun with your friends at the beach. Oh yeah. Having fun in the sun with your friends at the beach. Oh yeah. This is your plan.
Yeah, no joke. This is gonna be in my top 10 of the year. That feels so good. It feels so good.
Retired Nude Beach Volleyball, man.
So I'll say, like, you start the game and you're just it's almost like a visual novel style. You're talking to the referee of the league, and he's like, okay, look, you probably know volleyball, but let me teach you our volleyball rules. Okay, and it's like it's 1-on-1. You're like, okay, we played at 25. Okay, no spiking and no jumping and none of that. And you're like, okay, I got it. No diving for the ball, I guess, because you're nude. That makes sense. And he's like, because
that would be painful.
People have, we're all getting up there in age, and so we're being careful. Da da da. And then he goes on to be like, and when you're out there, you may feel like you need to talk to the other player, and so be respectful of their time. I'm like, all right, okay, that makes sense. And it's like, make sure to open up to them too. And make sure that you talk about your feelings so that they feel like they're welcomed and being seen. And I'm like, okay, what kind of game is this?
Where is this going?
And it goes on and on and on. And then you are going from game to game, and you have to drive there. You have to be on time. And you're constantly asking yourself, like, as you're serving the ball, like, the gameplay is really silly, and it's kind of like just back and forth. These two, like, cartoony nude old men hitting a ball back and forth. But then, like, you're going to hit, like, you go to serve, and it zooms in on your face, and you see thought bubbles. And it's like, I wonder why my son didn't call me today, And then he hits the ball, and then, like, the other guy's talking to you, and he's, like, telling him about, like, his family, and it's really amazing. And you realize this game is all about being vulnerable with other men and opening up and becoming friends, because you have to be, because you're nude playing volleyball in the beach. It's really amazing. And as silly as it is, it worked so well. And the ending was like kind of like a weird twist. Didn't expect. I won't give it away. If you want to watch it, it's only a couple hours of the full game. It's on YouTube.
I can say
it's worth your time. Probably, I mean, for this song alone, worth your money.
I can definitely say, full disclosure, this is actually the one game that I did not review. But there's something to be said here, because when this game name came up in the show notes, like, this is what we're going to be reviewing today, I lost it. I was like, what kind of heck game?
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear what the hell kind of game this is.
I didn't see your name on, but, like, it said, like, it was a discussion at the end, and I was like, oh, I got to play from this. And I heard the music, and I said, we're playing this no matter what.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then the discussion that you were mentioning that came up was like, it was meant to just be the review, but it became the discussion because the folks who played the game were so, like, in love and passionate about what the game did. Like, the stuff you're describing, for example. Like, they were just enamored with what they did and how they took this, on the surface, goofy premise and turned it into this heartfelt message with characters you actually care about.
Oh, really? Yeah, really cared about.
What's the word I'm thinking about? Subversion. They subverted. They subverted your interests, your expectations. It's like, you're coming like, oh, here comes a joke, and you're like, wow, my feelings. I didn't expect to get those today.
I was expecting like the silly, like, shower with your dad simulator, but it wasn't. It was so much more. And so I'm sitting there in the office. Me and my wife share an office, and and in the house, and I'm like watching this thing. I'm like, oh, this is gonna be silly. And I told my wife what it was, and then I kept watching. I'm like, this is amazing. This is amazing. Like, you have to watch this. This is so good.
Yes. Like,
so yeah, I'll tell you a little bit about even the twist is really good. Like, it's kind of silly, but like it fits. It all really, really fits, and it's all thematic too, which is really cool. So yeah, it's got a silly name. It's got an even sillier theme song, which is sung with so much conviction.
oh yeah, I
just
was
like
feeling
the game.
it.
Yeah, just
I was
like the
tapping
game.
on the chair like,
Yeah.
but you
might go out on that song one more time. So, all right. So what's your track? Because it's not as good as mine.
Oh, I'm not denying that. This comes from a game that I just like the music in it. Really, the game is fun, but it's the music that I really dug the most. This comes from the game Record of Agarest War Mariage with 1 R. And it's just the mini boss battle theme, and I have no idea who composed it.
All right, let's check it out.
Welcome back. You're listening to the battle theme, not the mini boss theme, from the game Record of Agarest War Mariage with 1 R by a composer whose name I don't recall. And it's kind of funny because this is probably, I did review this for SML, and while the game itself isn't bad, this is also one of those games where I'm like, that didn't stick with me after a certain number of months. It's another harem RPG in the Record of Agarest War series, but unlike the other Record of Agarest War games, this is not a tactical strategy RPG. This is a turn-based RPG, but the same premise of, like, you know, eventually siring a child and then the child becoming the character in the next generation, i.e. the second half of the game, is still intact in this game. That's the main point of this one, in fact. That's how, because the demon lord gets resurrected, and so does the hero, and as far as like their child or whatever. Anyway, the thing about it that made me really stick with it is, again, the OST, because long after I wasn't thinking about the video game itself, that music, oh man, I love the battle theme in this game. It sounds so good. I was telling Rob in the break, I really wish more RPGs and games in general make use of the wind instruments in their compositions.
Yeah, I didn't catch it at first. Like when the violin or the strings came in onto the track, onto this Virtua Tennis track, I was like, what's making it sound like it's a little more elevated, a little different, like when that like the big thing came in, the big violin came in, and it was the flute. There was a flute kind of harmonizing a little bit in the background, and it's really clever.
It's a pop.
Yeah,
This track is like I will listen to this at work like regularly. I'll just be playing in the office, and people will walk by. I was like, wow, that sounds really good. I'm like, yeah, I got good taste in music.
It does have like a Falcom feel to it.
Yes,
a little bit. I think it's the violin. It's not as fast as some of the Falcom tracks will be.
Yeah, this isn't a rock your face off.
Yeah.
This is more of a, like we were saying earlier, kind of swaying on the other side of the battlefield, waiting for your turn.
Yeah, it's got a good groove to it. It's got a good battle groove, which is good. You need that in a battle theme.
I think I may well be the only person I know that has in his spare time and like, I'm going to perfect my battle stance. Like just get like a stick, like a bat, and just like flip it in the air and catch it. Like, yeah,
you're at work and someone's like walking past your office, like, should we go in and say hi to Pernell? And he's like, and you're sitting in there like holding like a I don't know, like a poster tube, and your other hand you got a stapler, and you're rocking back and forth, and like, let's give him some time. We'll come back later.
Oh, he's working on his battle animation. That's okay. We'll come back later.
Well, for more information on the bonus round of our show, part of our show, you can go to rhythmandpixels.com. We have links to all the artists' SoundClouds and Bandcamps and websites and everywhere where you can go and find the music and buy the music and these games and support these amazing artists. All right, thank you for joining us on episode 32-8 of Rhythm and Pixels. This is the Pernell Multiverse, in which we're
the multiverse of reviewiness, the multiverse of oddities.
I mean, you've been doing this a long time. I mean, not just our show, but 6 years of game reviews.
Yeah.
So it's a long time.
And it's something to it, too, because, like, I've had people in the past ask me, like, well, why do you keep doing it? You clearly have more games than you'll probably ever play in your lifetime. And also, like, whereas all my friends have beaten Elden Ring probably 5 times over, I'm still nowhere near the end of that game because I play review games. And they'll be like, well, why don't you just stop and play Elden Ring? And the answer is, to be quite frank, there's a few reasons to it. One, and you can tell from this episode specifically, I get a lot of cool music that I would have never found otherwise from games that I've been tasked to review. Like, games I would have never purchased, games I would have probably never played. There have been games I reviewed that went from being, what the heck is this crap, to this is my favorite game this year. Like, and then the OST to match. I like having access to that. I like having extra fodder for the show. I just enjoy having new dialogue to talk about, too, because another reason to describe what I like for it is, like, it's up there with, like, when you talk about how your parents were, like, listening to music that they liked in high school and they never let it go. That's what they do. Mm-hmm. I feel like that can happen with video games a lot of times, too. We get caught up in these, like, scenarios where it's, like, it's always Streets of Rage 2. And I use this as an example because I love that argument. It's a fun argument for me. But, like, no matter how many beat-em-ups come out, no matter how many refinements or changes take place, people will just go, Streets of Rage 2. And I'm like, yeah, it's a great game, but, you know, there are other games that have come out that deserve just as much attention to give them a chance as you love Streets of Rage 2. But the reason why we love it so much, aside from the fact that it is legitimately good, is because it was a game we played in our formative years. It stuck with us, and we don't let it go. Like, when you play a lot of games en masse like I do, I come across games like, that's how I learned about Fighting Rage. I played it as a review title.
Right.
You find these games like, wow, these are the next generation. These are the classics for this generation. These are the games that kids that were our age when we play Streets of Rage 2 will remember as their big games.
Yeah, it feels good. It's a fun way to explore, new stuff and stay fresh.
Yes.
Yeah, stay fresh with that stuff.
Oh, to quote a Splatoon 2 character, stay fresh. The Nintendo language.
To quote a Splatoon character,
that's what they do.
I'll take your word for it.
So, like, the track that's playing on the end here, Rob chose it, which I think is interesting.
Oh, yeah. So tell me about this game and why you love it so much. Tell me all about tell me all about this one.
Well, first of all, I think the game's hilarious. So no shame here. This comes from the game Galgun Double Piece. This is a really weird game, and actually there's a funny little trivia bit at the end I got to mention about this game, too. The premise is really stupid. You are a high school kid who can't get a date. And you're just kind of mild-mannered.
Sure you are. Go on.
Oh, but this is the truth. So in this world, there are angels and there are demons. The angel is tasked with using her Cupid's arrow to help characters fall in love with, their soulmate or whatever. So this main one, her name is Ekaro. She's on her first day on the job. She's trying to pass to get her official angel's license, and she's tasked with helping this one, unlucky kid fall in love. But she overcharges her love gun and hits him with a shot so powerful that it maxes out his entire lifetime's worth of pheromone potential in one day. So every girl on the planet wants to love him, wants him. And he has to find true love in 24 hours or he will never find love again. So the funny thing is, I didn't even get to the funny part yet. That's just the fact that the game is like, all these women love him. And I don't care about the demon part because that's kind of a weird part. The other element of the game and how the gameplay works is that, like I said, all the women in his school and around him want him, and they're chasing after him. So as he's walking around town and through his school and stuff, trying to fulfill level objectives and stuff, women are chasing after him, trying to hit him the love letters and make him fall for them.
Exactly, but this is a rail shooter.
Yes, it's a rail shooter.
And so, they're jumping out of you.
Out of bushes, behind cars.
Like House of the Dead style.
Yes. And it's amazing. You'll see a girl just, dash across the street. She'll, leave a skid trail and, here's my love letter. So the way you have to make them, quote-unquote, go away is you shoot them with pheromones. You actually have a pheromone gun, which is your finger, and you point it and you shoot pheromones at them. I'm not making this up. And you have to shoot them with enough pheromones to make them feel happy, and they will collapse. That's the shooting element of the game. And then there's this dumb mode where you can, like a Doki Doki bomb, which, explodes in, hearts. And then all of a sudden, all the girls are, in this weird, photo pose or whatever, and you got to, make them feel good all at the same time. Yeah, I'm saying this in a way that this is a rated G podcast. Yes. I'm describing it in a good way.
So, I love it when the Game Grumps play games that are very embarrassing, and this is one of them.
This is definitely one of them. Because, this is not the game you play on the subway.
Yeah, if you want to... totally.
And the funny thing about the game, though, is that I do not deny that this premise is stupid. And I didn't get to the best part. I forgot. I do need to mention this about the demon. So, when the demon interferes, she contaminates the love-struck girls, so they become, I guess the anime term is tsundere love-struck girls. So they hate you, but they love you. So now they're not just trying to make you love them, they want to beat you. So the girl will kick you on the floor, start stomping on you, I love you!
Yeah, how many more things can we add to...
It's so weird. It's a weird game. And also, the trivia bit I wanted to mention, it's got probably one of the stupidest and also most expensive DLCs I've ever seen.
How much?
So, there's a DLC item. It costs $90. It's called Pheromone Z. The game itself costs $60. This DLC costs $90.
So for $150, what are you getting for that?
You get an item you can buy at the in-game store with in-game currency, so you still have to buy it. And all it lets you do is see, it gives you X-ray specs.
Oh, amazing. So $90 to see some of that.
Yeah.
You get an eyeful.
It's the most stupid DLC I've ever seen in my life.
Wow.
And I chortle every time.
For this game company... It's brilliant.
It's brilliant because I want to see this. I wish they can keep it anonymous for the sake of whoever wants to buy it, but I wish they would release the sales statistics of how many people bought it. I would love to know how many people paid $90 for it.
I want to know. Something went into that decision too, to be so they had to know it was going to be $90.
Oh, it's a whale. It's whaling in a different manner. Same thing.
Yeah, it's just a horny whale.
Horny whale.
I think, was that a narwhal?
Or a sperm whale.
Narwhaling, yeah. That's enough of that. That's interesting. Fun music, though.
Oh, the music in the game is great. The actual gameplay is fun, except for certain events where I was nope, that's why I stopped playing the game.
Exactly. So I wanted to finish our show with this music because it sounded like a anime theme song style, you know.
And the music is good. There's a track. I think I played a track from this game on a previous episode that I really liked.
Yeah, that's why it came to mind. I was going through the games you reviewed, and I was like, oh, that's right. You've done that weird one.
Oh, yeah, I got a couple wacky ones here.
So anyway, if you'd like to get in contact with our show, if you'd like to say hello to me and Pernell, if you want to say anything, If you have a track suggestion or topic suggestion or a recipe suggestion, please send us an email.
rhythmandpixels@hotmail.com, which reminds me,
Yeah.
Martyrus called us back on something I said episodes ago and then totally forgot.
Dip.
We got to put this on the sheet before I even leave tonight, so make sure we don't forget.
All right, hold on. Let's do this. We're getting all meta.
Always got to get meta.
Templates,
These boys
episodes. No, there's a list.
You're going to find it.
I'm gonna find it.
Well, while you're looking, I'm going to state it. So, basically, a few episodes back, I made the mention that we were planning to do an episode on Pirates versus Ninjas.
Yes.
And we do need to do that. And for the sake of context, the idea isn't so much one episode. It's got to be two. Because one episode is one of us is batting for Pirates, the other's batting for Ninjas. And on the next episode, we switch the roles. So essentially, you bring your best Ninja tunes and your best Pirate tunes, and we see who best can represent that side of the spectrum.
That was Carlos's idea.
Was it?
Yeah, I have that written down there.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So is that it?
That was the thing.
Oh, okay, cool. We have some other ones on here too.
We got a list.
Yeah, too many mechs. Games that feel like jobs. Anyway, go to our website to find a full track listing of this episode and all our episodes.
Rhythmandpixels.com.
And you can get also downloads from all of our episodes. Everything's all organized there by world, and you can even keyword search specific tunes or composers. That'll help you out there. And for you can go to youtube.com. I'm really off base right now.
Because it's past pumpkin hour.
Yeah, it is past pumpkin hour. I'm ready for some pumpkin. Go to youtube.com/rhythmandpixels. I have a 24/7 8-bit and 16-bit radio station playing there.
He put a lot of work.
I've done a lot with that, so go check that out. The chat will be back on eventually. There's just been spam bots like crazy. I don't know why. So, and all of our podcast episodes are up there as well. If you like to consume your media through YouTube,
The
you can do
YouTube
whatever you
way.
like. So go check that out. And if you want to support the show, the best thing you could do is to tell people about it. You can, share it on Facebook or Twitter. And Pernell forgot about something.
You know
What?
what I just realized?
What's that?
The term YouTube doesn't make sense in the modern era.
YouTube.
Yeah, so what did tube refer to?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, it's not so longer a tube anymore.
Right? And it was a tube when YouTube first came to light. And now,
Yeah,
no one's using those.
You screen.
It's ULCD.
I never thought about that. I don't know. I think anything else would probably end up as a porn site.
God, no.
Probably. Like, it's been like, or someone has sat on the URL and they're trying to
They're
sell.
waiting.
Yeah, they're waiting for the domain. Anyway, to support the show is to share it. You can like or subscribe on it on whatever platform that you're on. That's very helpful. You can also go to Patreon, patreon.com/rhythmandpixels. As a member there at any level, you get access to a monthly live streamed episode. Our live stream episode for the month of May will probably be in the first week of June, just because we have a few guests lined up for the next couple episodes.
And it also gives me time to find where I mentioned in the last live stream episode what the new topic's going to be.
Right, that gives us 2 weeks, so 3 weeks, yeah, so in 4 weeks and then 3 weeks. Anyway, it's going to happen. And we'll have the Patreon topics we usually have advertised on our social media and on our Discord. Our Discord can be found at the top of our website, rhythmandpixels.com. But yeah, you get access to those live streams through our Patreon. You also get access to some cool stuff. Or not access, but you can get cool stuff like merchandise, like mugs, stickers, T-shirts, all available on the website. And on the Patreon. And we also like to thank all of our Patreon members who are at the highest levels at the end of every episode. And that list is getting longer.
I appreciate.
Honestly, and I'm committing to it.
That's part of what makes it kind of cool too. It's like there's a nice bit of growth here.
Yeah.
And the best part is, like, I feel like a lot of it happened in the last 2 months.
Yeah, a lot of that happened pretty quickly. So thank you all so much. We'd like to thank Brooke. Thank you very, very much. Frankly Zappa, again, top tier member.
We're about to actually start playing Monster Hunter.
Oh, yeah? That's great.
It's going to be interesting.
I want to thank the number one. Thank you. I want to thank GameFan44, Mike Myers, Ulf Person, Fashion8060, Alex the Messenger from A VGM Journey, a fantastic podcast. Andreas Milberg, Brian Pitt, Cameron Worma, Carlos, Kung Fu Carlito from the Heroes 3 podcast, a podcast all about Asian cinema and Kung Fu movies. Chris Tienerson, Chris Weisner, a.k.a. Musashi219.
The wise guy.
Thank you for that message. He sent me a whole thing on a vinyl release of a game I can't remember right now. Phantasy Star.
Nice.
Christopher Shenstrom, Chuck Kowalski, Davey Cakes, David Taylor, Enchilada Rigol, Harold Howard, Jeff Mazziota, the Tri-Jeff, Triple Jeff. Justin Schneider from XVGM Radio, a fantastic VGM podcast. Keith Shusterman Martyris, host of the VG Emporium, right?
Yes, sir.
No, that's Rage Cage, right?
Yeah, he's the one.
But Martyris is the host of ReVGM. ReVGM, I got it mixed up. ReVGM.
Pumpkin Hour.
That's what my brain's going to mush. The host of the ReVGM podcast, Martyris. That's a great podcast of covers and remixes and arrangements of VGM tunes. I want to thank Michael Bridgewater from the Forever Sound Version podcast, long ago, but still
in our hearts.
Still in our hearts is the Forever Sound Version podcast, and still in our soul is Michael Bridgewater. Rage Cage, host of the VG Emporium.
I was waiting for you to say host of ReVGM. Wait a minute.
I know, I almost got. Maybe they'll have a crossover episode. I want to thank Reinhard Silkova, Sleepy S'more, Steve Miller, Taco, and Ed Wilson, host of the VG Embassy. Yeah, another great show, a great host, and hopefully we'll see him this year at the Retro World Expo.
Keep in mind, I mean, if we don't get a panel there, we could always still technically just go.
We can just go. I think we might just go, but it'd be fun to have a thing.
I agree.
We got a good thing going on, but we will be next month, June, the end of June. Pernell and I will be at Too Many Games in the greater Philadelphia area. We'll be talking games, talking music, listening to music. It's going to be the show, but with a lot more audience participation and yelling. A lot more yelling.
Which I'm looking forward to, because I'm starting to get some ideas. And I hope you did the thing you did last time. Especially because we couldn't get the recording, so it'll be fresh for the listeners.
I'm going to plan. I'm going to prepare. I'm going to plan. I'm going to prepare. And then we're going to get there. It's going to be coffee, beer, coffee, beer, coffee, beer. And
they make coffee beers.
Then do the show and then crash.
In a hotel or in your bed.
You can drive me home, bro. You can see me taking a nap in the virtual on cabinet.
Tim Gin approves.
Yeah. So anyway, that's the end of our show. Next week we have a very special guest all the way from Brazil, Dideco, the VGM DJ, and he's just putting out mixes on YouTube. I think he's spinning live. I can't wait to have him on the show. We're recording that this week, by the way.
Yes.
And then the next week after that, we got Matt. Matt's coming back on the show. Matt from Pernell and Matt Play Games.
It's been a while, and I'm looking forward to it. He ultimately said, "You got to remind me." Pernell was like, "Oh, I know, and I won't forget."
Yeah, he is the man with a smooth voice and a great taste in music. We'll have him on the show after that. So, that's all we've got. So, thanks for listening to the show. My name is Rob Nichols.
And I'm Pernell.
We'll see you next week.
Good night, and remember. So, I guess it's kind of as I mentioned on the show earlier, in a sense, I know there's like the stigma in a lot of ways about, reviews this and reviews that. But there's something to be said about being subjected to games that you would have just straight up ignored any other sense of the word, and learning about them and potentially finding out that they are the game that you wanted and needed but didn't know you needed. I think Loop Hero is a fine example of that for a lot of people last year. That was like a big hit that nobody knew about or was expecting to be good. But a lot of the ways you come across that is by just like perusing review sites, like looking through just a general list, like what are the games that came out this week? What are people saying about it? Not because you personally wanted it, but just because it's just nice to see what games are being highly rated. That game got a high rating? Why? I gotta read and find out. And then you learn about it, and you're like, you know what? I'm going to go off of my pre-made game shopping list and just give this wacky, weird, unexpected title a try. Because I tell you, I stand by my belief. Anytime we do these like top 10 game lists of the year on this show or on SNL or anywhere, or Hey Poor Player, I always come out of the cup with these games that are like, you chose that? I'm like, you bet your butt I chose that. And yes, I chose overall the big boys, because at the end of the day, this feels more special. This feels more There's more love and passion in it. It's not a game mill. It's not milled out. So yeah, just step outside of your normal world of gaming. Find some new interests or unexpected love. Also makes for some great conversations too.